They're scared to sit up here. So I want to welcome everybody again. Thank you for coming. I'm really glad that you took time off your busy schedules to join us. It's a real pleasure to introduce Ray Wang. I know him not that long, about a year, maybe less. He was presented the first time at Licensing Live, and he was an absolute hit. Everybody checked off. He was the best presenter, the most exciting, the most dynamic. And so now, and he didn't pay me to say this, so we decided to invite him again and give him another challenge, and that is to find a way to talk to our audience about the 3 software licensing trends. But what makes most difference to Ray is that he always talks about what customers want. That he comes from the user and point of view. He always represents the users because he has lots of experience negotiating licensing agreements and talking about innovation and all the things that we all need to know as providers of software. So we also need to know what will drive revenue. So Ray is the principal analyst and founder of and chairman of Constellation Research. If you don't know it, look it up. It's a great company. He also is has a contributor. Oh, actually, he provides what do you say? He writes a blog called the Software Insider's Point of View, which has over 1 million pages views. So people read his stuff, and he has 49,000 more Twitter followers than I do. I'm working to catch up with him, but as long as I reference him, I always get a follower or 2, even if it has nothing to do with Ray. He's a prominent, as I said, he's a prominent keynote speaker. He has a lot of experience working with clients. He's a contributor to the Harvard Business Review, Wall Street Journal, and many other magazines and news media. And his background is in emerging technologies and trends. But his focus is on harnessing innovation. So I really am happy and proud to be aligned and to have him present for us today. In addition to Ray, we're going to have a quick presentation from Jam. He's in the back of the room. Jam Khan is our Senior Director of Professional Services. So he's going to share with you the things that Ray talks about and how they are tactical, practical, and how they apply to SafeNet. And the last will be Dale. He's also in the back, and he will do a little quick presentation demo to show you how the product can do some of the things that we're referring to today. So enjoy your food. It's going to come. I hope there's a place for it. It's going to be terrible. There isn't a place for food. Maybe, feel free to put the lighting candles and all that stuff on the floor. And enjoy your meal. And Ray, it's all yours.
Hey, thanks a lot, Marcy. Hi, everyone. Let's give a round of applause. So this is going to be challenging, I know, because we're all eating. Just make sure you eat, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Right? This is going to be like a discussion along where we're going. I want to know first, how many people went to Licensing Live? Okay. So half of you have seen some of this edge of where digital is going, which is what we're going to start with. And then we're going to talk a little bit about these new pricing models that are emerging, that are happening. How many folks here are actually knee-deep in actually doing licensing, pricing policies? Okay. How many folks are on the marketing side? Okay. How many folks are on the product side, building the product and putting it in? Okay. We got a great mix. This is great. Okay, cool. So what we're talking about right now for us, the big thing is a digital shift. Everything's moving to digital. And that is going to be the thing you're going to be hearing about for the next 12 to 18 months is digital business, digital transformation. Where's digital going? How are you supporting digital models? And that means cloud, that means mobile, that means social, that means video, that means all these different technologies that are there that enable this digital transformation that's happening. And that's the big question people are asking is, what are we going to do in 2015? How are we going to get our clients there? How are we going to get ourselves there? That's the big question. Now, the reason we bring this up, and this is a stat that we find more and more powerful every time we use it, it's 52% of the Fortune 500 are gone, merged, acquired, bankrupt, off the list since 2000. Now, the Fortune 500 was started in 1955 and was going on at about a 7 to 8% attrition on its own. But once 2000 hit, when the internet hit, massive changes occurred because massive business model shift occurred, right? Now, we might have thought it was the internet age, we might have thought it was the social age, we might have thought it was something else, maybe it's mobile. All these factors have come together really around where we are talking about digital. And these changes are happening right now in front of us. And these changes are big changes, but more importantly, they're changing because consumer and enterprise are kind of collapsing. When we're thinking about the way people work, we have 5 generations of workers. Those 5 generations of workers have different needs in terms of where we work, when we work, how we work, what we work, why we work. That changes the way how we access technology, access goods, access subscriptions, access instead of own, which is a big shift that's happening in the marketplace. And then, of course, we've got these new business models that are popping up all over the place as these technologies converge. Now, what's important about this is, if you think about behaviors, right? We talk about 5 generations all the time, but those 5 generations are different. We're talking about 5 generations by digital proficiency. This digital proficiency concept is so important because it's how we interact, it's how we communicate, it's the expectations that we have. So we got digital natives, people who grew up with the internet. Now, you could be 60 or 70 and grew up with the internet and be a digital native. You could also be 30 and be a digital native. Age has nothing to do here with who's a digital native. How many folks wake up to an alarm clock in the morning? Raise your hands. How many people wake up to a smartphone? How many people wake up to a watch? Okay? I wake up to an alarm clock. I have a Sony Dream Machine from 2nd grade. It still works. Don't ask. But it still works. It's the only thing I have from that era. Right? How many people write notes down and then retype it? Raise your hands. Right? That's a digital immigrant. Right? You could just all type and use Evernote. Why do you bother? Right? So these are the kind of things that we see. So the digital immigrants are the folks that are sitting between, like they grew up in the analog world, but they're moving into digital. They have different habits. Digital holdouts are people that are saying, I don't ever want to do this. Digital voyeurs are in between. They're the ones that are looking in. They know what's happening. They're going to make that shift. And then you got digitally disengaged. These are people who were early or people really paranoid about privacy. And those are the folks on that end. Now, when you look at that segmentation on these 5 different areas, that changes the type of usage, that changes the way you look at how you communicate, different things from pricing plans, marketing options, all these things shift, right? Basic communication styles. You know a digital native is someone that's doing this, right? They're talking to you, but they're doing something else, but it's okay, right? Now, a digital holdout would be very upset. Right? A digital holdout would want to look you in the eye, have that conversation, acknowledge the fact that that conversation is happening. Now, while this is happening, we've seen these shifts go through. Right? Mobile is the first interface. Right? That's how we connect. Mobile is not a separate pricing option. Mobile is the way we're going to access things. It's not necessarily by a device either. It's the way we access when we're not in front of a stationary object. Right? This changes the way you look at mobile. Everyone looks at mobile as a channel, but mobile is how we get in. Right? And if you think about your devices and the smartphones that we use today, there's more power in these devices than was used to send a man on the moon. This is access in motion, which is very different. When we look at what's going on the social side, that's how we connect. Right? Those are all the different connections that span time, space, and it also importantly spans personal and work. And we're bringing that together into different metaphors. In the social world and the social metaphors, we move away from create, read, update, delete. So when you're looking at power users or access, there are a whole bunch of different verbs that happen in terms of share and publish and like. Right? That creates a very different sense. If you're doing tiered pricing, what does that mean? And then, of course, the cloud. Cloud is our access point. You can only store so much on these mobile devices. But the memory, the compute power, everything's happening in the cloud, the innovation, the pieces that are driving the next step forward. And then, of course, big data, that's the intelligence, that's the analytics, that's the insights that we're trying to access. And then video is a way to collaborate. And video and unified communication helps us collaborate and connect with everybody. Each one of these pillars creates a fundamental problem in pricing and licensing. But let me throw those out for a little bit and say each one of these pillars does not exist on their own. So don't try to price or license on their own. In fact, they're converging and creating new digital business models. They're converging and creating different opportunities. It's social and mobile. It's cloud and big data. These things are coming together. So trying to think about these as separate problems is the thing that a lot of our clients tried to do, and it's actually the hardest thing you can do because that approach is actually flawed because they're all converging. People ask me about mobile ROI. How do we change mobile access points? Do we charge by devices or do we charge by people? What are you trying to solve? Because you can't answer that question. That is a hard question to answer. That's something you give someone on an interview, right? Because you can't solve that question. It's like, why are manholes like round, right? It's about as bad as that, right? So you can't solve that. Anyone have a question or comment? Anyone jump in? So they don't fall through? Yes. That's why the manholes are round, actually. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're going. Now, that being said, mobile is the entry point. The pricing models that you have today by user, by person, or by access, actually, well, if everyone's coming in through mobile, what does that do to everything else in our pricing models? It completely throws them out, right? It makes it very, very difficult, but mobile is that first access point. Now, this is a survey. We surveyed about 119, 120 people about what was important for them in terms of new technologies and what were they putting in inside their organizations. These are end users, these are buyers, this is what their priorities. Mobile was first, analytics and BI are second, and cloud, of course, they've been doing it for quite some time. Right? Now keep in mind, these are early adopters. This is why they're moving in that direction. Go ahead.
Are these prompted or unprompted choices?
These are unprompted choices.
So they came up with the term mobile enabled.
And then if they were close, we actually categorize them. Okay. So yes, these are unprompted choices. And what's interesting about this is we work with early adopters, fast followers, and market leaders. So the data is a little skewed for people that are out there probably by a year or two. Now the problem is this digital disruption is starting with mobile, but it's all across the board. And what we wanted to do is actually put this all into context because what's happening is even broader than just these technology trends. You, as people interested in pricing and licensing, need to look at a comprehensive view of what's happening. And what we've done is we've actually looked at these trends and mapped them in terms of a broader context around political, economic, societal, environmental, technology, and really look at legislative things that are happening in the marketplace. This is a futurist framework to help you map out digital. The reason we're starting so far up here is because we want you to understand what's happening at the business model level. So I'm going to go really quick here. The first part really here is around political, right? There's a lot of things you have to do for compliance, whether it's privacy, whether it's different pricing models, whether is that collusion or not, is that a partnership or is not, is that related to what the government thinks is antitrust, right? But it's actually really hard to do this because, the first point, policy lags the change in technology. Our legislators are so far behind on understanding what's going on. Now, to give you an extreme example, there are more people with science degrees in the executive branch of what China's government looks like than there are total in terms of our Congress, right? I mean, it's actually not even close. We have like 10 people with science degrees or science backgrounds sitting in the Senate, right? Just think about that. The understanding of what the policy implications are for cloud or for mobile or for a different technology or for a different pricing model is just beyond their ability. And because of that, that's hindering your ability to drive new business models in a lot of situations. And then more importantly, this technology ignorance is actually making it very hard for you to introduce new models. Right? Because some things might look like it's not fair, some things may look like it's anti-competitive, you got to send the lobbyists out there, you got to do a lot more work to introduce something new. Now, we're not in regulated industries like utilities, thank God, but the point being is if we had even more regulation, it would be even worse. So the political aspect really changes what we look at on the digital side. Now, on the
why do you say in the West, the political class in the West?
Because when I look at other countries in APAC or other countries in emerging markets, yes, not in the Western U.S., but in the Western world. Okay. So, very good question. And yeah, jump in with questions, please. When we look at the economic side, what becomes interesting is the cost of money is actually creating some very interesting changes in digital. So as money gets cheaper, we have very interesting shifts in terms of where you invest and what countries you go in. You might notice that mints and BRICS are places that are starting to pick up. Mints being Malaysia, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey. You're starting to get requests, right? Now that's a function of where interest rates go, right? So if U.S. interest rates are low, people invest outside of the country. If U.S. interest rates are high, the money comes back into the U.S. and creates some interesting shifts. Now, this also ties back to where you grow. So the dynamics are important. China, great market now, bad market in 20 years. Why? Because it goes like this, one-child policy, and then maybe fans out, right? Japan, really bad market, but Malaysia and Indonesia are all fanning out. So if you're in consumer software and consumer goods, those are places where you're seeing a lot of investment where people want to push out, right? And the other thing that's interesting is you're actually seeing some shifts because of energy and economic policy where you're seeing manufacturing come back because of IP issues. And with manufacturing coming back, what that means on the licensing is actually much more detailed around sensors and analytic ecosystems that pop up because they're going to be connected to the Internet of Things. They're going to be connected to all these other areas which will drive different policies. On the societal stuff, what is really hard to believe is access trumps ownership. We are now at a point where maybe 15 to 20% of the population would prefer access over owning something. Right? And that's only going to continue to grow if you look at the population shifts. Access is Netflix. Access is not buying the DV. Access is Uber and Sidecar and Lyft. Right? All these other ways to get to services without owning anything. Access is Airbnb. Right? I don't own it. Now it sounds like time sharing. It sounds like all these different models we have in the past. Yes, but it's coming back. And when you see that, that's also SaaS. You don't own software. You are only accessing. Anybody here from Workday? Right? Salesforce? These deals are now 7-year, basically, BPOs that are going on. You don't own anything. You have the data, maybe, but you're on a BPO for 7 years. How do we even get there? Right? We went from, we have to own this. We don't want the torrential vendors to be there. Right? We switched around and said, oh, yeah, I'll sign up for the 7-year BPO. Right? And not have to deal with my IT team. Right? That's where we're headed. And that's part of this piece. The other piece that's going on is there are a whole bunch of things that are happening around in terms of thinking about backlash against Silicon Valley. And this is something you're going to have to be careful about in the long run because when people look at the Valley is destroying jobs. The Valley is completely, yes, we're destroying value. We're actually creating value by driving down costs, but we're taking out jobs. We're taking out business models that were here before, completely wiping them out. And it's actually making it easier for a few people to do that. So there's going to be a backlash from the Valley at some point, something to watch out for. Now, on the technology side, this is the piece where it becomes interesting in digital. Right? The thing that's really important is mass personalization at scale. The ability to deliver context, relevance, in a real-time basis, that's interesting. But in a right-time basis, that's even more interesting. Real-time means I get a lot of information at once. Right-time means it's contextual. We think about location, we think about time, we think about relationships, we think about roles. Ad targeting is mass personalization at scale. A maker bot built inside Amazon that's able to deliver things manufactured on demand, that is mass personalization at scale. We are slicing things down to even smaller bits so that we can actually connect with people when things are relevant. People will pay for relevance. Think about that. People will pay for relevance. No matter how much you slice access, if it is relevant to that individual, they will pay more for relevance than get a lot of noise. And you're going to see that as a big shift. The second one is big data business models. And we'll talk about this in the 3 trends on licensing. The big data business models are happening inside every organization. How many of you guys are software companies? Raise your hands. I'm going to make a bet. I'll take people to dinner. Right? In 5 years, if you're still a software company, you'll probably be bankrupt. It's a bold statement. I'm going to lose a lot of money on this one. But let me explain why. The value of the information and the connections inside your cloud systems is going to exceed the value of what you sell in software in 5 years. If you haven't gone down that business model shift right now, I'm going to make the case that you're going to be at Thomson Reuters. You're going to be a LexisNexis. You're going to be streaming that information, right? Because the connections and that piece of information delivered in context is so much more valuable. The benchmarking data that's happening there is so much more valuable. And we see these big data business models. And we're going to go deeper into this piece in a bit. And the last piece is these cognitive systems, right? Augmented humanities popping up, right? Is it going to take away the jobs overnight? No. But what's interesting is if you're a lawyer, if you're a physician, right? If you are an accountant, good luck. In the next 15 years, those jobs will be completely automated in a sense that you'll never see before. I'm a lawyer and I'm looking for case history. I automatically scan the complete database and say, look, there are 15 things here that have precedent. There's 15 things from case law that are much higher. Which one do you want to choose? How many law clerks go away? How many associates go away when that happens? I'm a physician and I run something in a drug interaction and want to look for adverse events, right? And suddenly everything pops up. How many lab tests do I cut through? I use personalized medicine, lab tests, I look at what's out there, and I've got 5 choices as a physician, and I cut the time by 3 weeks on a test. Right? That's a lot of people that are going away. That's a lot of jobs that will go away. These are white-collar jobs. Accounting, same thing. Do I really need someone to figure out if that's really rule or not a rule? Right? I can do that comparison electronically. So what I'm talking about, when augmented humanity comes, we're basically being able to take that data and surface up decisions. What would you pay for a decision? More importantly, what happens if I don't take that decision? What's the risk for not making a choice on my own gut versus what the computer has suggested? See where we're going? So these are really out there, but intentionally out there for you to think about where pricing models are going to go. Now we got other ones really around environmental. Oh, go ahead, come back.
When does the CEO's job go away?
When the shareholders say so. Only when the shareholders say so. The CEO's jobs are, as you can see, right? So when we talk about inequality of pay, right? Actually, what's happened, if there's some work going on between Harvard and Berkeley. We have a guy named Raj Chetty that's coming to speak at our conference in October. He's looking at the equality of income, equality of opportunity. The rungs are wider, but it's the same rungs and the same amount of people in each piece. The rungs are just huge between the gaps of each area. So this is why CEO pay is, you don't need that many people to start a company. Think about what cloud did. I have a company, it's 4 years old. I could not start this company. Everything's in the cloud for me. Right? But if I had to start from scratch, it would have cost me $10 million in seed capital to start. Today, that's all gone. That's $10 million of value that went away. Right? Hardware costs, installation costs, anything in back office. I mean, this is the pace of change that's happening, and it's happening at that level. The other piece is really around sustainability, calculations. You may actually have to do more in your licensing model to actually calculate things around regulatory processes, around sustainability, environment. These things are coming back. And then the last piece here, which is interesting, is really the legislative piece, privacy. Right? If you don't solve the privacy issue, and that actually happens not only on the licensing side, that actually happens on the identity piece, which you guys all have if you have an account and an account holder. And more importantly, when we see this, you're going to see a lot more pieces of legislation that are going to try to attempt to figure out how to create equality in this digital divide. It's not going to work. They're going to try. It's just going to be that way, right? But the regulatory aspects are going to come back into play. And so whatever you do in licensing, whatever you come back, there is that piece where politicians are out on one side, the legislation's on the other piece, your technology trends are going one way, and your business models are shifting. Now, the reason I bring all this to bear, and you guys probably saw this when I did this, half of you have seen this, but the other half haven't. So don't answer the questions when I ask. But the point is, business models are being disrupted. Right? That's the big thing. This is not about any other trend than that we've got the tools in front of us to disrupt business models. And whenever we disrupt business models, that means you guys all have a job. Right? Because you're planning, you're figuring out what's next. You're managing that licensing policy. You're managing what's happening on pricing. You're managing what those new business models are going to forecast and look like. So, all right, what's this? It's my Sony Walkman, right? When did it come out? 80s, right? 79, I've been told, in Japan. 83 in the US, right? That's like 34, 35 years ago. I'm going to attempt to use this in Japan, but it's going to be another story. But this is arguably Sony's last transformational innovation. Think about it. This is the last thing Sony was known for on its own. Everything else they partnered for. Everything else has not necessarily been a success, right? Now, we're going to talk about incremental and transformational innovation because this is going to help you think about licensing models. I waited probably 4 years for the next thing that was incremental. I had to go to Japan to buy this. It was $400 in 89. And, that's like $1,600 in inflation-adjusted dollars. I picked up the next hot thing, the double cassette Walkman. I could play 180 minutes of tape. I had a rechargeable battery, and I had those cool yellow headphones. And I could record. That one actually recorded, which is cool. All right? But that's incremental innovation, right? Sony could have built this. Everybody knows what this is. And at the time they had this, they had 3 different versions, right? 3 different models were happening. But what was going on in the music and entertainment industry at that point in time? Napster, LimeWire, right? Who paid for music? You didn't pay for music. Nobody paid for music, right? Did you go in and buy a $20 cassette or album or CD? No, it was free. What was the business model innovation of the iPod? They convinced you to pay 99 times more for music that was free, right? You were happy to pay 99 cents for digital music, right? It was free. This was a business model innovation. This was the worst sounding player in the market. It had a great UI, but it sounded like crap, right? Apple, whatever that was, that conversion loss thing, doesn't work, right? There were so many other companies that could have did this. Sony had 3 different versions out there. Walkman unit had one. The CD guys had one. Some other digital lifestyle unit had one. But they couldn't get it together. More importantly was this. Think about the iPhone. What did the iPhone do? That is completely transformational. And for those who were there at Licensing Live, you know the answer. This one device killed 27 business models. How many people go to Costco to get their film developed? Unless you need a big piece, right? Where do you go to get a flashlight? It's on your phone. How many people have a watch? You guys, anybody have a watch? Right? Do you need a watch? No, it's on your phone, right? What do you do with navigation? Do you have a Navi device or GPS device? You don't need the purpose-built devices anymore. So think about that. 27 business models massacred by the iPhone. That's why if you look at the Fortune 500 list that I talked to you about since 2000, I'm sure Apple was responsible for at least half of those companies that went bankrupt. From Kodak all the way on. Right? Now this incremental information and transformational innovation is important because even Apple is at risk. Right? Apple puts out one phone a year. Samsung puts out a new device every 35 days. Just think about that. Right? This is the chaos that's going on. Just being faster, better, cheaper, having a better distribution model, having better pricing is not enough to survive. It's actually the business model shift that's happening here. So how many people think they sell products? Raise their hands. How many people sell services? Raise their hands. Right? How many people are selling experiences or outcomes? How many people think they're selling a brand promise? A brand promise. What's the promise of your brand? The big shift is we don't sell products anymore. We've gone from selling products to keeping brand promises. What does that mean in your business model? What did it mean for licensing when you started selling services or delivering on experiences and outcomes? Product companies don't sell products anymore. There's no margin in products. Products suck. Except for Apple, nobody gets the margins, right? Services companies are competing on time and materials. Time and materials sucks. That's human labor, right? And we're down to a point where we can barely get it to $70 a billable hour, right? What do you do with experiences and outcomes? I have some hope there because I'm making a promise on a statistical model. And more importantly, if I'm selling promises, I'm getting the margins I want. Real quick examples. 2 different types of planes. What is the metric that matters the most in the airline industry? Uptime, seats per mile. What else? Is it safety? Is it on time? Is it, what else? The honest truth is nothing matters except for revenue per passenger mile. Everything else is secondary, right? Now, incremental innovation is this thing, the Airbus A380. We have a hub and spoke model that allows us to go from revenue per passenger mile. This does what? Puts more butts into seats, right? So you can get more people from San Francisco to London, London to Dubai, Dubai to Johannesburg, if you want to go that way. What's the top? It's a Boeing Dreamliner. And when it's flying and not on fire, no, when it's flying, right, what we actually have, this in the Airbus A350, right, is ability to do something different. I can go to San Jose Airport and fly to Osaka. Think about that. I could go from San Jose Airport and fly to Beijing. I could go from Indianapolis and fly from, you know, I can go to Netherlands, right? I can go to Amsterdam. I can create brand new routes that didn't exist before because it's lighter, it's faster, but it still solves the main problem of revenue per passenger mile. This is transformational in the marketplace because it breaks the hub and spoke model. This is incremental because it keeps the existing model but pushes it ahead. Right? Siemens. These guys don't sell million-dollar units of imaging machines anymore. They used to try to sell you financing, but interest rates suck, so they're really giving away the financing. They tried to sell you services. It's a $1 million machine. I might pay $2 million for support. But if I promise you 80% uptime for the next 5 years, you probably would pay $4 million for the machine. And I could probably get you to pay $5 million for 95% uptime. That's an outcome. They're not even selling the product anymore. They're making sure that the parts are there. They're making sure that preventive maintenance is there. They're making sure they made a promise to their customer that this machine is going to be up, and if it's not up, we're going to give you a replacement machine, and you're not going to be down for more than X%. How do you price for that? What's the licensing model on that? What's the risk on the back end? What do you have to do? What's the underwriting that actually has to happen to make this work? Right? That's one of the big shifts. Now, more importantly, is Disney. This is an example of a company that's selling a brand promise, right? You first watch the movie, then you buy it on VHS, then you pick it up on DVD, then it shows up in Blu-ray, then you get it on Netflix. How many times have you bought that movie? Right, that's 4, that's 5, it's even 6 times because you might do it again, right? And then, what do? You go to an amusement park, right? How many people have gone to Disney park? How many people have gone on a Disney cruise? How many people have a Disney timeshare? You know, you can retire in Bangalore and Celebration, Florida too, because there is a Disney retirement community. You know it's going to be more expensive. You know it's going to be good. You know it's got a brand. It's got a family appeal. They're delivering on their brand promise. So you don't care how much you pay because you're getting an outcome. You're getting a brand promise on Disney. That is the premium on a brand promise. How many people are hardware vendors? How many people have more than a 10% margin today? Oh, where are you?
Brocade.
Oh, Brocade, yes, of course. You have a brand. You have a brand. If you didn't have a brand, where would you be? Commodity, right? You'd be going down, anyone from Huawei here? You'd be going down that route on a commodity route, which is a horrible business to be in. You're competing on margin, just margin alone. Nobody cares about the brand. Right? The brand promise is what gives you value. The brand promise is what gives you margin. In your pricing models, you have to factor in the brand promise if you want to get margin. If you forget about that, you're in a commodity business. You are going and circling down. It's not going to be fun. Right? That's why I'm in software. There's higher margins. No, but the point being is like that's where you're going. That's why hardware vendors are now doing software. That's why software vendors are doing services. That's why ultimately hardware, software, services come together for outcomes, right? Services companies are trying to build software, right? You guys are trying to build IP, right? Everyone, this is all coming together because I got to deliver a brand promise, right? I could have a good partner ecosystem. I can get there, but I need to deliver a good brand promise. So there are 3 things that are happening here in this disruption, and this is what's happening. We have to think about this digital disruption. Every business model is being broken at this moment. And what we start with is cloud. Right? When we look at the cloud model, the key things here are land and expand. Right? We've done things like good, better, best pricing. We've gone from freemium to premium. Right? We're trying to cross-sell pieces. But let's look at really what's going on. Some of you have seen this. Right? The shift in cloud is a big shift. This is business buying, not IT buying. This is software access, not ownership. This is the ability to actually treat software as a utility, not a purchase. This is what happens when we're going from 2 to 4 updates a year instead of having one big update and one big move. And this is also the fact that it's constantly being maintained. These are big shifts. We're going for things that are simple. We're going for things that actually follow what the user wants. We're going from zero impact on management. And we're also looking at users and usages as opposed to user usage based originally. We're moving to a base. And more importantly, we're locking in by relevance. We're not locking in by extinction. Right? You see these shifts? But what that means to you on a licensing basis is today we've all been trained on good, better, best pricing. Right? Have 3 options, try to move them to the middle. Well, you're actually going to need 5 and 7 as you grow. Right? Because you're never going to move these folks up unless you actually have more tiers. And the tiering becomes very important because when we take to the tiers, what happens is you're going to have to move someone in a 3-tier model to a 4-tier to a 5-tier as you progress them up. Now, you can't get there if you do this in terms of your normal pieces, right? If you just actually have one tier on the low end and one tier on the high end, people are going to feel like, okay, I didn't get any value. So you have to come back and slice things even deeper, right? Now, the second part of this is the freemium and the premium model, which a lot of people did on the consumer side, so that hopefully we'll get more users. But the problem is people figured usage was the piece that was going to convert. It's not usage. It's a feature. Right? We've looked at 100 companies in consumer. Features get people to buy and pay. Usage has nothing to do with this. So if you're Box or Dropbox and you're like, how do we get these people to pay? You find that one critical feature to move them against. And in fact, there are multiple critical features. And once again, you don't do that by age. You don't do that by company type. Think about the digital proficiency model. What are different types of users doing? Now, there's industry and regulation that will get people to move. But don't do it with mobile access. And that's the cross-sell add-ons up piece that's over here. Because in cross-sell add-ons, if you're trying to get someone to pay for something that should have been free or included in the subscription, you've already lost your customer. You need to go look at the ecosystem, take the product strategy, and think about what is next. Right? Where are the edges? And that's where you then do the add-on. That's where you do the cross-sell. That's where you do the partnership. Put everything on one paper, get the integration in place, and then move forward and sell that. That's how you're going to get to additional revenue. Everyone has this idea, when they get to 500 users, we'll charge them a little more to be enterprise. Okay, maybe, I get that on a freemium model, but you're not going to get any further usage in some models because there's only 40 users anyway in a company if you're in a very narrow area. Okay, so what do we have to do? We need a feature. But if we charge them for something that they should have gotten anyways because we promised them timeless innovation and all these upgrades, we're going to lose them. We're going to piss them off the same way we did with on-premises software. So you're going to see these things actually come together. Now, once again, as you do this on SaaS pricing, cloud pricing, we all know what we did. We all went back, looked at the on-premise cost, did the reverse engineering, amortized for 48 months, and ended up with $150 a user a month. How many of you guys did that? It's okay. It's really what happened. So that's how we get to these numbers today, right? So the good, better, best pricing is actually now in 5 levels, actually in 7 levels, but do it by features. If you do it by features, you can actually move people off the lower lungs to the next piece. And more importantly, if you see the cross-sell opportunities, that drives your acquisitions. Everybody's looking for M&A. The whole valley is going for M&A right now. There's so many deals going down in the next 6 weeks, right? Hopefully they're cross-sell deals because otherwise customers are like, well, why? Your money paid for that acquisition. How come I didn't get that software? How come I didn't get that feature? And so those are the conversations that are going to start popping up. And you know what? The clouds aren't pure anymore. It's not all organic. Everything's inorganic. People are doing mergers and acquisitions, combining clouds, connecting, which is creating this piece. And mobile access is not a feature. All right? Do not try to charge for mobile access. That is a losing battle. Right? Everyone tries this. Like, we're going to charge for mobile. Like, really? I'm sitting in a VC meeting and someone's like, we're going to charge for mobile now. I'm like, good luck. Not going to happen. Okay. The second piece is business models. Right? Now, we gave you that whole framework of the world is changing, things are happening, digital world's coming. Here's what's going on. There are 3 things that are happening in big data business models. And this is what's important is we can actually go out and price out raw information streams. So here's the information inside the system that we can outcharge for. We can actually bundle it with public data, other data to create new types of information. We can actually go for piecemeal outcomes. You just want to access me once, fine. That's like a one-time credit check. We've all done that. Right? Nobody needs to be a credit check member for like the next 10 years. And then pricing for subscribed outcomes. Right? I'll pay when an outcome is achieved. Now, let's flip it around. Let's think about what's going on inside your company's business model. There are 3 things that matter. The first thing is, how complex is this? This is the work rules. Right? So are we making decisions? Are we selling decisions? Are we actually just running basic rules? There's a level of differentiation, which is like, okay, this is something common, this is center of excellence, and this is innovation. We're pushing it out. And then there's task processes and business models. Every company, if you can answer where you sit on this scale, you can then figure out what you're selling, right? Or what your companies that are your customers are selling and reverse engineer the business model. Now, inside every organization is a ton of data. And this data is all sitting all over different places. You might be part of that data stream. You might be aggregating that data stream. But that data is useless to most people unless it gets converted to information. And when it's at information, it's at a business process level. Right? We have upstream, downstream subscriptions of things that are happening. Well, the value is actually not even in that information. It's the connection between all those different objects, which then takes us to insights. You ultimately want to be able to ask the questions. I will pay for an answer. And if you can get your software, you can get your licensing piece to answer a question, people will pay for that. So why are blue sweaters selling better in Michigan than red? State schools, right? University of Michigan, go blue. Why are red sweaters selling better in Alabama than blue sweaters? Right? Red sweater. Okay, state schools again. All right, so that's interesting insight. So I now know the answer to that. What do I do next? That's the decisions and actions. I need to shift my inventory. I need to change the way I move. Now, I could pay for the fact that you gave me those decisions, or I could pay you 1% of the revenue for the fact that you dropped my inventory costs, you actually improved my turn, and you improved my sales of blue sweaters and red sweaters in those two states. Now, are we there yet? No. Will we be there in 5 years? No. Will we be there in 10? Yes. All right. Now, what does your pricing model look like today between now and those next 5 years? This is what we're talking about big data. Big data is not about this. This is like, ETL, does it fit? Does it work? Can I crunch this? Does it work on Hadoop? I'm not interested in that. Business folks are interested in this. Your pricing is based on those outcomes. Does that make sense? See where this is going? Now, on top of that, you all have identity. And there is a battle for identity. People are paying for data around identity, even though they shouldn't be selling it. Some people are stealing that data, like our federal government, but that's a different story. So in this context, right, your data around identity, it's the context between those identities that are important. So if you've got multiple properties, if you are servicing multiple customers and hopefully their own tenants, their own security models, you actually have an opportunity to be in the identity business. Everyone in this room actually has an opportunity to be in the identity business. Because I'm trusting you with an account, I'm trusting you with maybe a payroll slip, I'm trusting you with something. The value actually comes when you bring all these identities together in different places, and you're given the access to do that, because it's a convenience piece. And you're going to see this pop up more and more. For example, media and commerce vendors think they're in the identity business because they have a login. Financial services folks think because they have an account, they're in the identity business. Governments definitely think they're in the identity business. They are. Hardware companies think they're in identity business because you have a device, and that device is going to carry an identity. Social networks think they're in identity because you log in with them to get in. Software companies all have identity. If I'm a payroll company, I got a pay slip to everybody. Imagine if you can just take a pay card on your mobile device and use that to pay for something. Right? They're in the business too. And telecom companies, anyone in telco? Telecom companies have been there, right? Unfortunately, may miss the wave again, right? So, I mean, this is a very interesting thing. So all these folks are battling for identity. And you're in the middle of that. Now, how do you pay for that? What's the pricing model identity? Okay, so there are 3 business models here. You can go deeper. There's a blog in Harvard Business Review on what a big data business model is. I think it was put out like 2-3 years ago. But the main thing is this information-based differentiation. This is where we get some interesting payments. So think about FedEx, UPS, when you could track a package. Wasn't that pretty cool? You go in, you could see that. All that was them driving down their cost structure and not having a call center agent pick up the phone and say, hey, where's my package? Right? So self-serve, you can say, here's the package, it left, it was received, it's on the dock, it's in the air, it's 15 miles away. Wonderful. That is an innovation that people could pay for. That's a data model that actually hops. That creates a differentiating point in customer service that people might pay for. So Google Maps, you guys all use Google Maps? Google Maps with traffic? Would you pay $1 extra a month if it could tell you where the nearest gas station was when you're down to a gallon? You might not, right? You may, right? But the gas station would pay Google $5,000 a month to advertise a hot dog and a Coke and a fill-up if you were in that situation. It's not just the consumer. So you see these differentiating models. Back to the FedEx example, I would pay $15 extra if you told me where that truck was, because I'm residential and I don't get anything until after 5, right? I would pay $15 to go find where the truck is on Waze, go intercept them, show them my barcode, and pick it up from the truck. Right? I'll track down the truck if it's my iPhone, a replacement laptop. I'll pay more for something like that. What inside your organization, what inside your customers can they do to open that up? Right? What data can they open up so you can differentiate and create another product line and service that? And what does that licensing model look like? Information brokering, that's the benchmark data, right? That's the ability to know that, okay, some stores are doing better than another. Back to the Siemens example, right? Why is Stanford doing a better job with scans than UCSF versus Alta Bates or versus John Muir, right? Why are they doing that? How does it work? How come they're getting better information? I'll pay for benchmarking data, right? I'll also pay for analytics and insight when you take different data streams and put them together. So right now, I know a bushel of wheat's going about $28 is about a bushel of wheat, right? A bushel of wheat in Ukraine, which is like near Georgia, which is a breadbasking area, probably is going for 40. I've got empty containers that came back from China that I could probably harness for about $2 a bushel. You know what? I'll pay you $50,000 a month for that data because I can make a killing on the arbitrage. So you see where that's going. It's analytics and insights. Now, the third model is very important because that's the network model. These are information-based business platforms. Every trading network, every commerce supply chain is a network. Every network, even in hardware connected to all the different devices, is a network. I'm going to give you a B2C example, which is very easy to understand. There are only 4 companies in the world that can go from cloud to device. Who are they? Apple? Okay, who else?
Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon.
Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. Not Facebook, but Microsoft. So Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon can go from cloud to device. You're either a network, which is what they are. You're usually either a content provider, which is what they are too. And you're either the arms dealer, which is what they are too. Right? In a model, in a network model, if you're the arms dealer, you're providing stuff to them. That's great. If you're the content and you think you're a network, you're dead. In the consumer world, there's only 4 companies that have that network locked down. It's not even Verizon or AT&T. It's not even Facebook, not even Samsung, because they own that whole chain. So you better be content or an arms dealer, or you're in the wrong game, or you better raise a lot of money to go after them on the network side. Now, in the B2B world, these things aren't built yet. They're undiscovered. You take something like GE and the industrial internet, connecting to all these devices, all these machines, all those ecosystems. There's a lot of money to be made there in these big data business models because we're connecting data, we're selling insights, we're selling benchmarking, we're selling services, we're selling a lot of information in here. If you're in software, even in consumer, right? Which person clicked on this ad? Which person bought this? I'm watching my kids play Minecraft. There's a lot of opportunities here to mine this stuff for different things, right? There's a lot of data in that could do something else with, and that's where we're seeing this shift. Now, the last piece is demand-based pricing. How many of you guys use Uber? How many have used Uber during a demand surge? Okay, that's like a $12 taxi ride suddenly becomes a $40 taxi ride very quickly. Right? Now, when I talk about demand-based pricing, I'm looking at it different. I'm looking at by perishability, which is by time. If I don't make that connection, I've lost it. I'm looking at by outcomes-based. So if I didn't get to a service level quality, that's what I'm trying to sell. And also looking at spot markets, right? Looking at arbitrage on risk. Now, there are a couple things that some of our clients are doing. The first one is perishable by time. Right? You've got time-based opportunities like if you don't connect at this point, everything's gone. Right? So there's a value to that. And once you miss it, it's worth nothing. Right? That's completely time-based perishable. Now, the other thing is really about, we actually see this in that other trend that we talked about, mass personalization at scale. The more relevant you are and the ability to deliver that at the right time in that relevance, that's a model where you can actually pay. So information delivered to someone at the right time, at the right place, an offer delivered at the right time, the right place, the right location, a transaction or an opportunity presented to someone that they might want to bid for or pay for at that point. So the question is, how much will you pay for that?
I was about to drop my Amazon Prime account. Last order, and received a text that it shipped, received a text that was on the truck, received a text that was delivered. I taped my, just, it
was worth your Amazon Prime membership?
Yeah, I just, I was pissed at them for one thing, and I thought, you know what, the services that they provide override the issue. So it's like, yeah, you're right. You give them what they want at the right time.
Okay. I mean, look, most people go in a Best Buy store, can't find the person, fine. They get on to Amazon, they look, and they buy in the Best Buy store. Right? That's got to suck for Best Buy. Right? I mean, they're basically the virtual warehouse for Amazon, and they get like none of the money. Right? So that's kind of the things that are happening. So time-based opportunities are huge. This is mass personalization at scale. Now, you can do it B2B, you can do it B2C. The outcome-based piece was the piece that we're talking about. Would you pay on a jet engine for 90% uptime or 95% uptime? How much would you pay for that uptime? How much would you pay for that capacity, right? And so it's a question of where do you want to make that delivery? Now, that means you need actuaries on your end, right? Or you're totally hosed, right? Because you're buying an insurance policy on outcomes. Because if you blow that, okay, what's the penalty? So that licensing model becomes important about thinking about penalties, where do we go, how do we drive this? Now, on the other hand, if you're managing that really well and you have all that data inside your organization, you know when something's going to go down. You can stop it before it happens. You can actually deliver things that are much more efficient. Along the way, you can actually grow that business. And this is why the outcomes-based, experience-based pricing we think is going to keep picking up because we have better data. We have better information. That better information is going to give somebody a leg up. Now, cloud companies inherently have all this data. Right? They just aren't tapping it. Right? They're not fully taking advantage of all that information. And there's so many opportunities that are being missed there. Then there's spot and long-term markets. And we're going to see a lot of these pop up. And this is back to the Uber example. Right? I need a ride. Yes, it's really perishable by time, but it actually isn't. Right? There are 15 other drivers that are out there. If there's only 5, I'm screwed. So that's a spot thing. Now, if I have an Uber contract, I could actually hedge that risk and assume that maybe I'll pay a 20% premium on a normal cab ride, but you're going to guarantee me an outcome. You see how these are all coming back together? And this is really, demand-based pricing is actually going to hit all 3 of these. You won't see these happen on their own because the time-based element, the ability to actually go by service level agreements, and the ability to go back in terms of going for a long-term market, they're going to come together. You know, see that convergence in terms of the pricing models. Any questions? Okay, so those are the 3 ones. So as you can see this.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Compare this with old-fashioned hardware, semiconductor chips. How is this different from that?
In what way? How are you pricing your chips?
Pricing, you do it, you guarantee a certain performance, a reliability rate. If you don't meet it, the supplier pays a penalty or replaces the product. I personally was involved in a deal where we paid somebody, I won't name them, $20 million because 10 devices didn't work out of a batch of 200,000. So it's similar. I don't know what's really unique about software. It's just that you have to relate to it.
Oh, no. Look, nothing we're talking about is new. We're just trying to figure out new applications. I mean, let's be honest. Cloud is mainframe time sharing. Mobile is a dumb terminal. And name value pairs are back. Oh, that's big data. Right? But we're in 40-year cycles. Right? And one of the things I try to go back is I went back and looked at what IBM was doing in the 60s and 70s to understand mainframe time sharing, how slicing and pricing was working. That's when I figured out, okay, on the cloud models, here's what's going to expand, here's what's going to work, here's where they failed, here's when the limits are. Right? We still got a lot of runway on the cloud pricing right now because the mainframe time sharing piece is still going. Right?
There's some other things about IBM we can talk separately.
Yeah. There's other things there too, right? So, but go ahead.
My question is with respect to the insight piece, right? The insight that companies need to get, they need human expertise. And that is not a scalable model. You talked about bushels of wheat. I mean, how many people in this world would think about the bushels of wheat? Maybe at some level you're still limiting your choice. So if that's not a scalable model, doesn't this whole thing, again, hit a glass ceiling very quickly?
Yes, so your question is about insights, insights as a service requiring human intervention to be able to get there, and how do you scale with insights? I think what's going to happen is we're going to learn that, we're going to put that back into the algorithm, and it's going to come back again. And so the next time you get to that problem, there's actually a repeatable process. And so we'll keep doing that, and over time, those algorithms get smarter. Now, in between then, I hope I have enough runway to still have a job, right? I mean, that's really the ultimate thing. But they're going to learn. These things are self-learning. I mean, you take something like Watson and some of these cognitive things, they're self-learning. Right? It's a little freaky. So I can beat Watson maybe at the first part of a demo. By the end of the day, when they don't reset it, I'm dead. Right? It's learning. And that's a very, very different thing. And same thing with all the things that they're doing around all these different probabilistic algorithms. I mean, it's getting pretty smart. So, any other questions? Okay, well, cool. So all these different things are happening. You're seeing the demand-based pricing, the big data business models, and of course what we're doing on cloud and SaaS come into play. We're all living the cloud piece. The big data piece is coming. The demand-based piece is further out. So now, next 2 to 3 years, probably 5 to 10 years out. That's a way to kind of look at these ways. We haven't had a chance to put a paper together because we've been spending a lot of time with folks trying to map out the models. Now, we've shown this before in the past, and the reason we bring this up is because you have to think about where your customers are before you can apply these pricing models. Right? And your customer's DNA is important. We talked about incremental. That's like Airbus A380. We talked about transformational. That's like the Dreamliner. We talked about proactive, people that are actually making these moves, and we're now talking about people that are reactive, that are saying, I'll wait. Most companies are not market leaders. Right? That's 5% of the market. These are the customers that go to you, I need a new pricing model. And you're like, well, we already have standard pricing. No, I need a new pricing model. We're doing something different. And you look at them like they're insane. Why are we going to do that for these guys? Because they're building something new. They're in a different business model. Your pricing doesn't work for them. Right? That's the early adopters. These are the people that are pushing ahead. These aren't the folks that are trying to create a pricing model to screw you. These are the folks that are creating a new pricing model to do something different in the marketplace. Then what we have are fast followers. The fast followers are like, oh my God, these guys did something new. I need to catch up with them. How are we going to do that? Right? They didn't want to go first, but they don't care about, they don't want to be a far second. Right? And so they want to do it faster, they want to do it better, they want to do it cheaper, they want to learn from you. That's 20%. This is the old crossing the chasm. Here's the early adopters. There's where we're going. But notice that. If you have fast followers, they'll help push your product to get better, help you think about things differently. Right? Market leaders and fast followers, they get you out there. They keep you innovative. If we think about cautious adopters, though, that's most of our base. Right? This is 50%. These are the folks that come to you and say, yeah, we met you at a trade show. That was really great. Let's go visit some stuff. Let's do a demo. And then you do the demo. That's great. Then they're like, oh, three months go by, and then it's in your forecast for your leads. And you're like, oh. Yeah, can you come meet my boss? Okay, so you go out, you do the visit, you meet the boss, they do that. We're now 6 months out. Okay, good. And then you think you're going to close the deal. Please don't forecast these guys. We're going to close the deal, and they're like, oh, I need an ROI study. Can I talk to a customer? Can I do a site visit? Do you have a reference? Right? These are cautious adopters. That's 50%. That's most of your customers are here. You've all been there. Right? We need to check with our management. We're not in the budget cycle. So a deal that was going to close in 30 days that you thought was going to close in that quarter is now 3 quarters out. Right? Honestly, fire these customers, but you can't. Okay? So these are cautious adopters. Now laggards are awesome. I love laggards. They pay maintenance and don't bother you. They're awesome. They're paying for the whole operation. You treat these people like kings because they're not going to be around very long because they're going to be acquired by everybody else. But you treat these people like kings while they're there. Right? Because they're not innovating, they're not moving forward, they're just hanging out. Right? These companies are going to be acquired. Okay, now the real problem is this. How do we move these guys from here to here? The pricing model has a big impact here. You actually have the ability to improve cross-sell and upsell because you can get them to figure out how to go from here to here. You're cutting down sales time by 60 days, 90 days, 180 days because they liked your pricing model. Because the IT director is no longer involved and the business guy's like, I need it now. Right? That's what we're talking about. And so if you think pricing and licensing isn't making an impact inside a company, it's right here. This is where the impact is. You're changing the way they're thinking. They're looking at a different business model. Oh, wait, that's going to compel me to buy. Wait, this is a different model. I get where this is going. Wait, I can amortize that. Wait, I don't have to go to capital. Right? That's what we're talking about. That's why this is really exciting, because we've got to move these folks over here. These folks eventually come over here, because if they don't, they fall behind and they become laggards. Right? And the laggards get acquired by the market leaders. Do you see where this is going? Now, if you want to bet on customers, this is why you want to bet on the market leaders and fast followers. Because if you bet on them, they will take you to the next market and everybody will follow. This is the long tail. This is truly the long tail in licensing and pricing. Typical factors, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys have seen this, right? Remember Maslow? Well, this is the one that's actually done for companies, right? And so licensing and pricing also has the same hierarchy of needs. The bottom is don't get me sued, don't get me fired, and don't get me killed. That's regulatory compliance. That's like keep me safe, keep me warm, keep me happy, give me shelter. Operational efficiency is can you use this to help me cut costs? Right? Can you do things to help me drive down the cost structure, the cost of ownership, help me understand better stuff? Revenue growth is can you do this to help me grow the business? Right? You can actually switch licensing around to actually create it in a way so an OEM or a partner can be very successful and can drive more growth for what you're doing. And then, of course, strategic differentiation, which is I'm doing a brand new business model. We're going to go out there. And then the top is really delivering on a brand promise. Right? These are same things that actually apply to business. We just inverted Maslow's hierarchy of needs to actually apply for work. The last piece is here. You guys are seeing this all the time. There's a battle between IT and a battle between business. It keeps happening. These are 6 S's of consumerization. Very important because you're appealing to each one of these folks. The first thing is simple. Line of business folks. How many of you guys are on the line of business side? Anyone on the IT side here? Okay. On the line of business side, what's happening is you want it simple. Make it easy. Make it simple for me to understand. Simple to get up. No training. No manuals. Make sure everything's there. You also want it scalable. I want to be able to do something without talking to IT. I want to be able to add a new user, add a new department, add a new customer, add a new product line. I don't want to involve IT. And then more importantly, it's got to be sexy. I want to get excited about using this stuff, right? This is the UI, the user experience, making sure people actually can get the value out of this, and adoption goes up, right? On the other side, IT has a different requirement. They have to keep things safe, right? Don't take out my system. Don't create any issues for me. Make sure everything's up and running. Make sure it's secure. I don't want to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal with a data breach, right? And more importantly, sustainable. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where the licensing piece comes. It's not a 10-year platform. It's not a 5-year long-term platform. It's not a 3-year long-term platform. This is the 18 to 24-month long-term platform. That's what you're selling now. Your product cycles are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So 18 to 24 months in the mobile app world? No, 18 to 24 days. Right? Think about that. Your mobile app, is that out there? Those things are shifting every 30 days or even faster. And so what's actually happening is IT has to do this. They have to scale up. But line of business is going to keep going. They've got to move. They can't wait. And if you have a situation where business wins, what happens to IT? It goes to crap. It's BYOD. What happens when IT wins, which is what was going on 5 years ago? You have no business. You're dead. You're completely dead, right? So the smart person who put iPads in front of board members, thank them. But no, the point being is this is what we're trying to get to, right? And using licensing policy, you can actually help move these people along, right? Think about the steps, think about the pricing models, think about when you actually create different opportunities. You can actually make the shift happen. And more importantly was the other one, you can make this shift happen too, right? These are some big things that can happen in that piece. Okay, that's me. Any other questions? You can kind of ping me, hit me on Twitter, and I'm actually based here in Cupertino. So, all right, thank you very much.